Is mine all turned on and ready, my sound?
It works. Yeah, there we go. That's much better.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
You could just like say hi.
Hi.
Okay.
How are you? Get your kicks on Route 66.
Oh, you want to hear?
Ready? Ready?
Ready?
Okay. Tell me your name and spell it and give me your title.
Sure. My name is Ellie Alexander, ELLIE-ALEXANDER, and I'm the Director of Tourism for the City of Pontiac.
How many Route 66 museums are there and what are their locations?
We are the only one in Illinois. I think there are 2, possibly 3 other ones that are outside of Illinois, and I really don't know where they're at, to tell you the truth.
What makes this museum special?
This museum was set up by the Illinois Route 66 Association of Illinois, and it is 10 years. We opened up in June of '04, and this museum is all donated artifacts. They have been collecting them from businesses. This also acts as the Hall of Fame, so businesses that are on Route 66 that have had some significant history with Route 66 are nominated annually, and those members are recognized in this museum as well. So it not only does it show things from the period of when the days of Route 66 began, but it also honors the businesses and the people that helped create the Route 66 experience.
Give us a little history on why the Route 66 Hall of Fame was built.
It started with the former director of tourism saw that there was a smaller exhibit down in McLean, Illinois, and it was a hallway and a truck stop, and they had a hallway of some brochures and some pictures and information, very small exhibit, and there was a new owner buying that truck stop, and they didn't know what they were going to do with what they called the Hall of Fame at the time. So she went to the Route 66 Association and the city founders of Pontiac and said, can we do something to really bring this museum hallway to Pontiac and create something that would be a visitor experience and kind of tell the story of Route 66. So it was about a year-long process to get all of that stuff set up, and then the location that it is in now was actually in the old firehouse. So it was really kind of a wreck, and they took about a year to get it ready for the museum to move in.
How many visitors come to Route 66 Hall of Fame and where do they come from?
We have to date this year have had 49 different countries represented. We started keeping track in about '08, and we're up to 150 countries have been represented here. We see about 50,000 annual visitors, taking into consideration we do a head count here at the museum. It's a sign-in book. We also have several other museums, so we average the attendance rate. But this is the most popular attraction at this point here in Pontiac.
Why do you think Route 66 has developed such a cult following?
I think because it, especially internationally, it's known as the Mother Road, and it really developed freedom, moving people from East Coast to the West Coast, or I should say Chicago. It starts in Chicago, and international visitors see that as the American experience. They want to go out and see what farmland is like. A lot of the countries that come here, land is of premium, and a lot of them are from big cities. So coming out, especially once you get outside of the big cities, seeing all the vastness of the land, there's a lot of intrigue with the Wild West and the cowboy era. So a lot of our international visitors are really looking forward to getting out to the western part of the country because they want to see the cowboys and Indians per se. They don't understand that it's not quite cowboys and Indians anymore, but it's just, and it's diverse in its geography, where you can have a big city and then you can be in a small town in a matter of a couple hours.
Where does Route 66 officially start, and why was that location chosen?
I can't tell you why it was chosen. I know it starts near Buckingham Fountain in Chicago, and why it started there, I really don't know. Like I said, I'm not the historian on Route 66, but it started in Chicago and then goes all the way to LA.
What states does Route 66 run through?
Oh, that's a trick question. There's 8 states, and I know Missouri, New Mexico, Texas, California, Arizona. Who am I missing? I'm not even sure how many I named off, but there's 6 of them.
Is there any practical use for Route 66 today?
Oh, it's driven every day. I'm a lot, especially locally. People didn't really understand the connection of Route 66 because it's a road that we take to and from a lot of our destinations, and it wasn't until the resurgence, until it was deactivated off the maps, that people started thinking about it as more of a tourist destination. But in Illinois, it's just about all drivable, and throughout the country it is. So people drive it from here to Bloomington Normal to do their shopping, from up to Dwight. It's an everyday road for a lot of the local people.
Okay, can you tell us about Bob Waldmeyer?
Sure. Bob Waldmeyer is an artist, or I should say was an artist, who's traveled all of his life on Route 66. He lived in this bus out in Arizona for many years, and he lived in the Springfield area. He passed away in December of '09, but before he passed away, he had asked that the bus and his VW, which is located inside the museum, be put here on display so that people could come into his home, and this was his home. And he ran the Hackberry General Store out in Arizona and lived in this, and then when he got sick, he brought it back to the Springfield area, and that's where it remained until after his passing.
How about some of these businesses that are on the route? How have they been affected by, let's say, the building of the interstate system?
Well, when the initial interstate system came through, the movie Cars depicts that very well. They bypassed the businesses, and a lot of historic downtown areas were missed. In the heyday, there was tourist attractions and the restaurants and hotels and cabins and all that were located all throughout the route. But in Pontiac, we've had 3 different alignments. The first alignment sits right outside this bus on the east side of us, but every time it moved a little bit further away from the downtown, it was devastating to businesses, and a lot of communities didn't survive. There's a lot of those communities out there today that did not survive. And Pontiac was fortunate that we do have a very progressive local government that knew that every time something happened, and this is way before my days here, but even today that same city government is really proactive about helping to bring the tourism into our downtown area, which is a historic square that's flanked with stores and retail and restaurants. So the heart of our city is here in downtown.
And besides the Waldmeyer bus and VW, what are some of the other cool artifacts that you have?
Sure. Here at this museum, the first floor is the Route 66 Museum. It's the old firehouse. The second floor of this museum has an exhibit called Life in the 1940s, and it's a complete house with the furnishings of a house, the toys of the 1940s. It has a reproduction of the Stage Door Canteen, which was in the Schubert Theater in New York, where servicemen would go and be served by waitresses like Lauren Bacall. On the third floor of this building, we have the Livingston County War Museum, which has stories of over 200 different Livingston County military with all of their uniforms. And there's a story. It's all volunteer personnel up in there. On the other side of the courthouse square, we have a historic courthouse built in 1875, which is absolutely gorgeous. But on the other side of that, we have the Wall Dog Museum, which was back in '09, we had 150 artists came from around the country and several international to paint murals. We're over 22 of the murals now. So we have a museum that talks about the artists that created the murals, and within that museum there's a Gilding Arts Museum that talks about the fact of how gilding used to be versus today. And then 2 doors down from that is the Pontiac Oak and Car Museum, which was a private collector who lived out in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma, right off of 66. And he had a collection of Pontiacs and memorabilia that goes with it, and came to the city 3 years ago and asked if we would be interested in opening a car museum. So we have that here in town. So all of those put together is a great package for visitors and locals alike to be able to spend a day in downtown. There's restaurants and shopping and all that available to them as well.
What is the most photographed artifact?
The most photographed would be the Route 66 mural, which is on the back of the Route 66 museum. That has been photographed by people from all over the world. We'll get newspapers that we can't read because they're in different languages, but that mural is the key to it. A lot of the automotive catalogs and magazines, and it's just phenomenal the amount of things that have been photographed there.
Cool. Do you have another question?
What do you think of attracts like people to Route 66 and making them want to travel with it?
Well, the people that are wanting to do Route 66, it's funny because there's lots of different ways to do Route 66. We most commonly think about doing it in a car, but I've had a gentleman from France who did all of Route 66 on stilts. And he actually, not only could he walk on stilts, but he could run on stilts, and spent many an hour here in Pontiac running around on his stilts. There are people that bicycle it. There's a guy who bicycled it, ran it. There's people that are doing it on a coach bus. We do a lot of coach bus businesses. Classic cars is another big way. So it's not just your average driving road trip, but it's also a way of people to, a lot of them will use Route 66 as a way of fundraising for charities or whatnot, that people will pledge money if they can walk it or do whatever. So every year we have somebody who comes through here who's doing a Route 66 trip in a very unique way.
Do you think the culture of like Route 66 and traveling it and like the history of it will stay alive?
I do think it will stay alive, and I think it's with the movie Cars that really helped us get into a younger generation. A lot of kids that had no idea about Route 66 learned about it through the movie, and we're seeing more and more younger people. It used to be, I've been here just about 9 years, it used to be a lot of senior citizens, people that remember taking vacations on Route 66 with their family, but I'm seeing a younger and younger. I'm getting a lot of honeymooning couples, a lot of international couples that are here. I had a bride here last week who was actually doing Route 66. They got married like August 3rd, and they came to Pontiac, and she was going to wear her wedding dress all across Route 66. So she was here, and we took pictures of her at the mural. So every year we're getting a little bit younger generation. So I think that is promising for us.
Can you also tell us a story about Bob and like his how he was gonna go into the car, be in his name was gonna be in the movie Cars?
Oh, sure. Bob Waldmeyer traveled Route 66 in a VW, and he is an icon along the road. If you talk to any Route 66 aficionado, they'll know who Bob Waldmeyer is. And Disney, when they were making the movie Cars, obviously did their research and knew that Bob was a character that they wanted to feature in the movie. However, they didn't get permission to use his name because Bob was a vegan vegetarian, and he didn't want his name associated with McDonald's, which was going to have the merchandising agreement. So he would not allow them to use his name. But if you watch the movie and see the kind of person that is represented, that's pretty much how Bob lived his life.
Cool. Yeah, I think that's a lot.
That's a wrap.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, what's your favorite landmark?
My favorite landmark, obviously, that's a tough one. I don't know that I have a favorite, but I think this bus is really important because it really tells the story of somebody who really dedicated their whole life, made their living off of Route 66, and was a friend to everybody. So I think this bus and the Bob Waldmeyer story is probably my favorite one that most people can relate to. We get, thousands of people have come through this bus, and it's real fun to watch the reactions to people that come in here, because you get the people that come in and say, I could so totally do this. I wanted to live like this. Oh, I should have done this. And then you get the people that are like, I might do it for a weekend, but I really can't do it any longer than that. So I think the story of Bob and the bus and the VW and all that is probably my favorite.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's good. Thank you very much.
Well,
Ellie.
you're welcome.